The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate alumni of color in their professional endeavors aftergate.
Are y'all ready?
Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Herman Dubois, aka Jerry.
Are y'all ready?
We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day, yet many alumni of color and the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of alums of color.
Are y'all ready? Welcome. This is your boy, Alvin Glimpf, aka A.L. How y'all doing? Aftergate Season 2, I am the co-host. I am with my co-host, homeboy since summer of 1987.
Say word.
Say word. What is going on, Mr. Herman Dubois, aka Jerry? What's the deal?
All is well. Just continuing to receive the blessings of the man above, and stay humble about it. And just serving, my brother, serving, just embracing it all. Just came off a little project that today was the launch. So the next 2 weeks, I'm painting, which I enjoy immensely. And
Yes.
so Home Murals got its first contract with North Bay Village, which is
Okay.
the municipality in which I live and reside. So it's in my backyard. So I get to let the locals know a little bit what we about.
Fantastic. You still doing work with the Juvenile Detention Center? How's that?
That is amazing. We just scored a multi-mural contract with juvenile detention residential program. So these are kids who are different from the facilities that I've been at. Traditionally, the last 4 years, I've worked in centers where they were transitioned between either being sentenced or being released on probation.
Okay.
Now I'm in the facilities where these are the kids doing time. And these are the kids that are at the end of their sentence. And we are working with our program model to have them rethink the narrative of what their life needs to be like when they get out and re-enter into society. And so through the art program, we're able to have a two-tier program where we work with them when they're in their last maybe 2 months, go through our workshop model, and then we work with them when they get out and do a community mural with them as the ambassadors. And so that's pretty dope. So that's forthcoming. We got a couple other things in the oven cooking. Basil's coming up in December.
I'm booking my ticket this week.
I'm thinking about having a little festival this situation.
Okay.
November is our 5-year anniversary. Planning a little fundraiser event. So yeah, there's a lot going on, my brother. A lot going on.
Nice. I look forward to celebrating that when I come down there and
Yes, sir.
continuing to build love what Hope Murals is all about.
Thank you, sir.
If it's all right with you, can I have your permission to introduce our guest for this week? Is that all right?
Absolutely.
The church says amen.
Amen.
All right. So Aftergate listeners, family, folk, it is my honor to bring into the room the one, the only, Norvella Pendergrass, class of 2011.
Okay.
All right.
I like that introduction.
Okay. You can loop that and you can use that if you need it,
Oh, I'm feeling it.
Feeling it? You
So
feeling
I
it?
am honored to be here with you all. You guys are doing amazing work. So I am honored.
Thank you. We received that. We received the blessings, and we also know you're doing some amazing work. Looking forward to talking about it tonight. So thank you for being on here, taking the time to join the Aftergate podcast. Much love. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you. Thank you.
So, as we always do, going through the encyclopedia, when did I first come in contact with the one and the only Norvella? I believe, and I have been known to get this wrong, but I do believe I really first become introduced to you after we do our Kendra Brim podcast,
Yes.
where she rocked it, came on here and said, "Hey, let me turn you on to some other amazing folk in my network."
Right.
Immediately connected us, and we've been, exchanging information. But then we actually had the opportunity to be on campus together, and I got to really feel the amazing energy. And so I'm a one who loves, like, I read people well, and I really love people who are too bring good energy, and I got that vibe from. But the other thing I felt from you is a sense of authenticity, and that's something else that I recognize and love. And when I see it, I know it. It's like can't always describe it, but when you see it, you're like, oh, that's real right there. I feel real in the room. Real is in the room.
She got it.
She got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
I will let you know now. I am not as amazing as Kendra. That is my girl.
hey,
I love her dearly. She is doing big and great things always.
yes. Kendra is a superstar.
She's
But
special.
My mom's told me I can tell what you up to by the folk you hang out with.
Amen.
So Kendra ain't hanging around no bums.
Right.
You don't walk the way Kendra walk and just have some poo-poo walking behind you. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story, but something tells me you just being a little humble right now. But we shall see.
She's showing sister love. She's showing sister love.
Right.
I mean, I ain't mad at her.
Not at all.
I have benefited many years from Alvin bigging me up, and Alvin knows I big him up just as well. So if your peoples ain't bigging you up, then you might want to re-examine who your peoples are.
Get some new peoples. So okay. So
on that note,
right. So 2011 is when you graduated Colgate. You get out of high school then in 2007. So give us a sense of what's life like for you 2007. Where are you? Where do you grow up? What's the world like? What do you remember happening 2007? Give us a sense of that context of pre-Colgate so we can understand who you were before you even got on campus.
Okay, pre-Colgate. Oh, you bringing me back.
Let's go. That's what we do here.
can I throw a little footnote into that?
Do that.
Go back, answer the question 100%. But I just been itching to know how you got the name Norvella, right? And give me that. If you can answer, just maybe there's a story, maybe there isn't.
No. There's always a story. Everybody has a story with their name.
I've heard a lot of names, and I'm gonna be honest, I ain't heard of no other Norvella.
So I am the one and only because the person I'm named after is no longer.
Okay.
But there's not really a major story behind it.
Okay.
So I'm named after my grandfather's mother.
That's a story.
Mother's
That's a story.
Mother, excuse me. My grandfather's mother's mother. Great grandmother. And so I never got a chance to meet her. That is the story I am told.
Right.
But other than that, I don't know. It's always been my name.
Yeah.
It has always fit me. And I don't know. I think that was the name that God made for me because I am very intent on you calling me by the right name.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, it's not Novella. It's not Novella.
Nope.
It like I can give you my nickname. I can give you Bella if you can't say Norvella.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not like for my first name to be said incorrectly.
I ain't mad at you.
No, I will go with you because I know there are a lot of names that I can't say, and I've learned that in my professional career. And I'll spell it before I say it wrong.
Right.
Right.
I have judges that have like, really, are we really going to do this every name? If I can't say it, I will spell it.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And ask you how to say it. And I will say it 3 or 4 times until you tell me, yes, I got it right.
Yep.
So now, context now. Graduating high school, what's life?
So I went to Holy Angels Academy.
Where is that?
A small all-girls Catholic school in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Woo!
And so at this time, I am part of an organization called Buffalo Prep.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Buffalo Prep is a
wow.
prep program that takes kids out of the public school system and place them into a selection of consortium schools. Most of the consortium schools are private schools. And to give you a little context, before I go to Colgate, because when I joined Colgate, I go through the OUS program as an OUS student. But prior to going to Colgate for OUS, I had just won the local AXO competition.
Which is?
I had just won first place in the field of math.
Wow.
Which guaranteed me a spot in nationals. And nationals took place over that summer. So I get to Colgate for an early summer going into Colgate for OUS program. I have to leave mid OUS to go compete in the national AXO competition in Detroit. And at this time, OUS is hard. And so I'm trying to do good. I'm an overachiever. Yeah, done messed me up bringing me to Detroit for this competition. I understand it's a very big competition. And I'm panicking about all the things I got to do at OUS. So I get to Detroit for the competition. I get there with my best friend, my colleague, my OUS colleague, my classmate, Sylvie Bizamungo. Sylvie's like, oh, we need to get in. We need to set up our project. We just got into town. I'm still like, I'm worried about OUS work. I got to read this. I got to read that. We got to get back in time. I ain't even worried about competition that we about to do in a couple hours. I compete in the national competition.
Okay.
It is over a week period of time. There are kids of color from everywhere. When I tell you everywhere, the talent in that room was mind-blowing. I saw people who have been working on projects for over 10 years and had put over $50,000 in their project.
Wow.
Mind you, I'm a lowly girl from Buffalo, New York. I'm just here because my godfather, Mr. Seymour, told me I had to compete. And I happened to win first place in Buffalo. So I'm just here. I'm just here for a free vacation. They giving me a little stipend to go ahead and spend. I get to go shopping on my time off.
Okay.
I'm here to enjoy myself. And you know, at this time,
from OUS,
I'll get a break from OUS. I'm a little worried, but I'm like, everyone's like, Bella, it's a break. I'm like, you're right. There's some cute guys from all over.
Right.
Let's be real. I'm just coming out from being a high school senior, so I'm like, oh, okay. Who the guys around? I get there, I compete. You know, everyone's panicking about competing. At this point, it's a vacation for me. So I don't got no panic in the world for me. To the point where my friends like, aren't you going to review your paper? And I'm like, no. They're like, why not? And I'm like, because I wrote it.
Review what?
I know what that shit says. I wrote it.
Right.
I know at least as much as it says to get past.
Right.
And so, you know, for the competition, there are all kinds of judges, but for the math field, we have Army lieutenants and sergeants and emeralds from the military and the Navy and all them. And just to give you a little background, my project is in cryptography. And so it was talking about the use of cryptography and Morse code, and other cryptography methods used throughout the military and just throughout wars that we have fought, and just the whole purpose and background behind it, and deciphering those things, and the mathematical logic between cryptography and language. Mind you, it was a project that I picked, but I was like, oh, I could do this. I love math. This was something that I thought I could do. I didn't know it was gonna get that serious, but it's something I thought I could do. I compete. After competing, I have to leave early because we have to make it back to Colgate. Part of the deal was that because we won the competition prior to going to Colgate, they would give us the opportunity to go to the competition and compete, but we had to make it back to Colgate in order to take class for OUS. And anyone who's done OUS knows this ain't no joke.
Right.
Don Palmer ain't playing games. And when I tell you Don Palmer ain't playing games, he was tearing my writing up. So he was literally telling me, run on sentence, run on paragraph, run on paper, rewrite this.
Right.
So I'm panicking about this paper I got to do for John Palmer.
Right.
I ain't even worried about competition. I'm trying to fly back so we can get back in time because I got to finish the paper. We got class in the morning. And we're stuck in the airport. And I'm like, I'm already upset because we're stuck in the airport. I got a paper to write. And we get a call. I'm not answering my phone because I'm trying to figure out what's going on and how we get on this flight. Sylvie answers her phone, and in that phone call, they're calling to say that I won second place in the national axle competition.
Hey.
Needless to say, everyone's happy except for me.
You stuck in the airport.
I'm stuck in the airport and I got a paper to write.
Right.
And John Palmer ain't gonna care that I won second place in the math field.
Not even.
Wow.
He's teaching education studies. He don't care.
Right.
So I'm like in panic mode. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, did you hear? Sylvia's like, oh my gosh, you won. And she's more excited than I am. And I'm just like, okay. Like, how we getting home? We need to get on this plane. Let's go. And so it doesn't hit me literally until after I get home. They lose our luggage.
Yeah, of course.
So, of course that has to happen. Our flight is already, different flight. They lose the luggage. We get back to Colgate campus. I'm up crying and screaming because I still have the paper to write.
We all can relate.
So this is supposed to be like the happiest moment in my life right now. One of those happy moments. Like, I'm getting calls from the Buffalo News. I'm getting calls from all kinds of media outlets to do interviews. And all I'm thinking about is I got work to do.
Y'all bothering me.
I don't have time for this. Like, what you want, call my parents. Call somebody, call Buffalo Prep. Like, they can give you that information, but I don't have this to do. So that was like a little background into going into Colgate. I knew that going into Colgate, it was going to be some work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to set the bar high and start off on a good note. So I'm like, one of the moments that should have been a happy-go-lucky moment. I probably should have been very carefree and everything. I was in panic. I'm over here panicking the whole entire time. You would have swore that this was like a school year semester, that if I failed, that they would kick me out. Because that's how I was treating it.
So let me backtrack a second. When you talked about coming out of high school in Buffalo Prep, one was Colgate something like you from jump was like, that's where I want to go, or was it like an accident, or like it was choice 10 and you had Harvard, Yale, Brown, and all these other opportunities, but something happened. You ended up at Colgate.
So I applied to 17 schools.
Wow, overachiever.
I started
She
applying
said
to
that.
17 schools. I fully applied to 15.
Hmm.
I got into 13.
Mm.
I got rejected by Yale. I am in Buffalo Prep, so I am very well aware of Colgate. I actually had attended a trip to Colgate that was planned by Dominique Hill. She was still working at Colgate at the time, where she's actually joined the staff at Colgate now. But she's a Buffalo Prep alum, my god sister, and she was currently working at Colgate, and she planned a trip for Buffalo Prep to come. And we get to the campus, we enjoy Colgate campus, but we don't enjoy Colgate campus that much. There was students on campus when we were visiting, and the white students on campus at the time were very rude and mean to us. It was literally like we were getting stopped as we were walking around campus like, who are you? Why are you here? And it was just like, you don't even know if I'm a student or not. Like, I don't look like I'm 17, 18, like, you don't know what I am. But these students were just like very cold. And it doesn't help that, we went in the wintertime and Colgate campus is very slippery. Ain't no one tell us about that. So we climbing these inclines and these hills and slipping down. And Colgate has this thing that although it's a beautiful campus, it looks very gloomy in the wintertime. It can give that like gray sky feel. And so when I first visited Colgate, it was just like, yeah, I had a good time. The party was good, but that's not for me. And so we take a couple of other college tours. My father, being the person he is set on me going to a HBCU. And you could not tell my father different that I was not a Spelman girl. Because he was telling everybody, my daughter's a Spelman girl.
Is he a Morehouse man?
He is not. My father went to Lehman Community College in New York.
Stop playing.
Nope. That's initially where I'm from before moving to Buffalo. He came to Buffalo for law school and moved us out of the South Bronx. He wanted to give us a better life. And so for my father, it was, if he had the opportunity to go to a HBCU, he definitely would have done it. And so he wanted to give us that opportunity. But at this time, all my training and background had been taking me out of predominantly Black spaces and putting me into white spaces. So now you want to put me back into a predominantly Black space?
So Buffalo Prep was particularly targeting students of color who had basically they identified who could be right. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so it was taking us out of those public schools that were lacking in funding and everything, and putting us into those private school systems. So that we could get into those colleges and elite colleges and universities.
Okay.
And so as elite as Colgate was, I wanted to go to Allegheny.
Oh, word. Wow. What happened to Spelman?
So I got into Spelman, and I went because my father wanted to take me on a free trip. So I was going, and let me tell you, my father is King Petty, y'all. I love him dearly, but he is King Petty.
I like him already.
I'm his mini-me, but
Right.
My father stopped talking to me because I said I wasn't going to apply to Spelman because I didn't want to go.
A word? That's what you're going to do? Okay.
So it was real awkward in the house that I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, oh, hey, Dad. And he would just walk by.
The disrespect.
And he like, I've been walking around calling you the Spellman girl, and you talking about you not applying?
And I'm like, are we serious? You're not gonna talk to your child? Like, I understand you got other kids, but sir, you know dang well you don't want to talk to the rest of those kids. But you're not gonna talk to me. And so he would not. So my mom was like, please, Bella, please just apply. Let him take you down. If you're worried about it being an all-girls school and you just coming out of an all-girls school, you know, Morehouse is right across the street. Mm-hmm. You have Clark Atlanta on the other side of the street. Mm-hmm. You know, there will be plenty of guys. And now you know it gets real when your parents are bribing you with guys.
Right. That does not happen a lot.
Is my mom bribing me with guys? What is this? So I decided to release the tension in the house and to apply to Spelman. But that was even worse because I got in. And so when he got the acceptance letter, he ain't opened none of my mail ever in life. He ain't read any of my other college mail, but he opened the Spelman letter.
This ain't for you. This for me.
He opens the Spelman letter.
Yo, I rock with him. I like his style.
all this mail is mine. He's like, this is my mail.
Mine is mine.
Like, but he don't open no other mail, but he opens Spelman. And so now he real excited. My daughter's a Spelman girl. We got friends coming into town. He telling all of them that I'm a Spelman girl. And I'm over here like shaking my head in the back like, no.
Don't let them fool you.
My heart is set on Allegheny. We go to visit Allegheny. I have an amazing time. It is amazing. Like, we have the best parties. It's like a great weekend to come. All the students were like really cool. We went up the same way we did at Colgate. We went up to students while we were in the cafeteria and everything, the diner. We talking to all kind of students, girls and guys. And they're like, yeah, you're going to love it when you come here. You're going to enjoy it. So I'm like, I'm fitting right in.
I'm coming here.
I'm coming. And so, needless to say, by the end of the trip, there's like 12, 13 of us that want to come to Allegheny. And my godmother, who is the director of the secondary prep program, is like, Allegheny can't afford you all to go there. And if you all go to Allegheny, who's paying for it because you're going to split the money pot? And so I'm like, and at this time, there's a staff member, Mr. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell, who really wanted me there. And I love Dr. Mitchell. Even to this day, he still looks out for me and checks in on me. But he really wanted me there. And I'm like, come on, y'all. Y'all gotta let me out. All people go. Y'all gotta let me go. Y'all gotta let me go. Like, they want me here. I want to be there. Y'all gotta let me go. My godmother, on the other hand, was like, I see you at Colgate. And I'm like, Colgate?
Power
really?
Move.
Nah, Colgate ain't it for me. Do you really want to put me at Colgate? Do y'all know how much problems y'all gonna have if y'all put me at Colgate? Come on, let's not do that. And so my godmother tells me this, and I remember this to this day. She says, as much as I know that you are going to get a Colgate education, I know that Colgate is going to be changed for the better because Colgate is going to get a Norvella education. And that's only education that you can provide to them. And so at this time, I'm like, you talking gibberish right now, lady. Like, I'm trying to go to Allegheny. So we take another final trip. I go back to Colgate campus for another visit. Because at this point, I have narrowed my school choices down between Colgate and Allegheny. Don't tell my father that because he had already narrowed it down to Spelman.
He's like, there's one school on the list, and that would be Spelman.
So I go back to Colgate for another visit. Colgate is, now I'm like, okay, let me check it out because this is where everyone wants me. Let me see if I can really see myself there. And I'm like, I mean, I get by, but like, this is not the school that I really see myself at. So I go back to Allegheny. Another fantastic weekend. You would think that maybe the first one was just like just a hitch. They just got it right that weekend. Second visit, fantastic, amazing time. When I'm at Allegheny, a letter comes in from Spelman as to the financial aid package, which is what we were waiting on. So of course my father opened that too.
He gonna see the facts.
Because my daughter's a Spelman girl, and they're like, so my mom and father calls me that a letter comes in for Spelman. And I was like, I'm sure Dad already opened it. She's like, no, we wanted to have you on the phone. Mind you, I'm at Allegheny right now, finishing off this trip. They needed to take me out so bad because they opened this letter with me, which I'm sure he had already opened up to open. And so I'm like, okay. And so he looks at the financial aid package to see what Spelman is giving me. And he's like, oh, they're giving you money. They're giving you money. And so he's telling me the number, and I can't remember what that number is. But of course it's in the thousands, But I'm like, Dad, what's the cost of schooling at Colgate? I mean, at Spelman. You need to look at the full cost versus what they're giving me. He looks at the full cost of attending Spelman, and he says, hell to the no. My daughter won't be going to Spelman. So at this point, I'm like, Allegheny it is. I'm ready to make my decision. But in this meeting, we realized that there are 5 people that wants to go to Allegheny. That means that the money pot will be split 5 ways, which means that it still leaves our parents paying a lot of money. And my parents couldn't afford to pay a lot of money. And so at this point, my godmother's already set. I already know where you should be at. When have I led you wrong? So I decided to accept my acceptance at Colgate. I was just at Colgate on Saturday. Unfortunately for a memorial service, for the chaplain Mark Shiner's son. He just lost his son. And of course, as you both know, once you go to Colgate, Colgate becomes a family.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have those experiences, it's home. So every time I hit that campus, it brings me back to young me. Like, I think about when I was running on a campus, and I also think about like how far I've come.
Mm-hmm.
And all those people who, like you said, invested in me, who knew despite how disruptive I was, how talented I was.
Were you involved in any extracurriculars while you were there?
No, but I did a whole lot at Colgate. So I was a university church deacon. I was part of the interfaith committee. I was part of BSU. Also serving as president and vice president.
Okay.
I think I served in core positions at least 3 of my 4 years. I was part of SORT. I was part of Sister to Sister. I was part of the Cove. So if you can name an organization at Colgate, I was part of Sojourner Gospel Choir. Like, if you can name an organization at Colgate, I was possibly part of it. I was partially part of Brothers.
Hey.
Yeah.
It wasn't official,
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
think I had an unofficial membership there too.
Got you.
She
How
was the
about
other gender liaison.
Yes, I'm part of We
no?
Funk, so all these organizations and
Yeah.
programs, I did literally a bit of everything. And so I
Mhm.
think that what made my Colgate experience such a great one.
Hmm.
Despite not wanting to go to Colgate at first, I had a wonderful experience at Colgate.
Nice. Where did you stay?
Uh,
Where'd you live?
what is that question? HRC, the Herc.
The Herc.
All
Okay.
4 years?
So
All 4 years?
3 out of the 4 years.
Oh, you was almost a lifer. Okay, almost.
Oh,
Almost.
oh, 3 out of the. They literally had to kick me out of the Herc,
You
and
know
that
what?
was only because I had the best lottery number out of all my
Oh.
friends.
Hmm.
So I got first dibs on the apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Because if I did not get the apartment I wanted, which was, I think we lived in Parker Apartments or whatever. If I did
Yep.
not get the apartment I wanted, I was staying on the Herc.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
There was, and really, I found no need to go down the campus. I was like, and honestly, I might have been a lifetime Herker because I pretty much stayed at the Herc. I had a best friend that lived there, and I pretty much stayed and slept over at the Herc.
Mm-hmm. Honorary Herc resident for
So
Right.
it was HRC was it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was life. We did a lot of programming. Coming into HRC, the way HRC was made, first years were on the first floor, and then
Okay.
upperclassmen were on every other floor. And
Okay.
so we had that connection that we were able to already know upperclassmen and meet with them and hang out with them on a
Mhm.
regular just from being in the Herc,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you
especially the
this.
seniors.
Let me ask you this, because you are a graduate, decade ago you graduate. How would you describe the students of color's feel or perspective of the value for HRC while you were on campus? Would you say y'all like there was a big connection to why you needed an HRC there?
There was. We were so the black population was less than 5% of Colgate campus when we were there. And during the time at Colgate, we had a lot of protest movements. So I won't say as much as I enjoyed my time at Colgate, yes, there was racism. There was a lot of racist acts.
Mhm.
I didn't have to experience them firsthand because of the person I was, and everyone who knew me. But I have friends that experienced them firsthand, and I experienced them through my friends, which we had to rewrite that narrative because when I was around, it was like I had Jean Charlotte, who was vice president of the school at the time. I had her on speed dial.
Mm.
I remember walking down to her house after midnight one day because they were trying to kick one of my best friends out of her dorm on West. And her two white roommates were being racist. And mind you, rather than get into it and have her get into it with them, after they called her a monkey and told her that they should hang her, we went to just was like, let's just pack some of your stuff and bring you over to HRC with us, and we'll deal with it another time. Once early, the next day or whatever, we'll deal with res life. We have one of our mentors, but also one of the staff from OUS. He's a mentor to us, but he was also staff for OUS. Ernest, come with us, just so that we knew that no one could put our name in anything. So Ernest puts on some clothes. He comes over. He drives us over. We go upstairs to her room, and even to him, these two white girls, because she's in a triple, come out the room with toy guns talking about bang bang.
Oh wow.
In front of Ernest, who they don't realize is a staff and administration of Colgate.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to pack her up. They're going off. At some point, campus safety gets called. And we're trying to call campus safety. Campus safety gets called and won't even listen to my friend. So it's literally a yelling battle right now. And so at this point, I'm on my phone, and I got speed dial on. They don't know who I am. So I called Dean Charlotte. She lives at the time at 13 Oak Drive.
Right there.
So we go down to that White House right there on Kendrick and Oak Drive.
Mm-hmm.
She lets us in. She's literally in her night robe. We're telling her what happened. Ernest is with us. Ernest is telling her what happened, and she's appalled. Like, this happened with a staff. As we're sitting at the dean's house, campus safety calls my friend's April phone. So Dean Charlotte tells her to answer it and put it on speaker.
Mm.
When I tell you campus safety is so disrespectful right now on the phone, to her, she has to bring her behind back to the dorm, and that's an order and everything else, to the point where Dean Charlotte jumps into the conversation.
Okay, Dean Charlotte.
Okay.
All right, big up to
And
Dean.
how dare you? And I'm just like, so, we had those moments. So we had a reason for HRC where we didn't have those problems in HRC. We had students who were white that lived in HRC, and they loved it. Everyone was welcome in HRC. It was home for students of color, but everyone was welcome. And we supported each other. We had a great time. We had a classmate of mine's kid. He was Korean. He lived there. He loved it. He felt right at home. We had a young lady named Amy. She felt and called HRC home. She was white. On the lacrosse team. Her, colleagues would come over and hang out. So it's like HRC, unlike some other dorms on the Colgate campus, we weren't exclusionary. We were home for students of color, but we were also home for anyone who wanted to be there. Where other places were not home for students of color. So that made it such a need for us to have an HRC. In HRC, we did programming too. We had a lot of celebrating each other's birthdays, celebrating, just accomplishment of each other's. We did a lot of, soul food nights, Hispanic culture night, not just as organizations and LASO and BSU, but just as a dorm. We didn't need to be part of the organizations and programs. Most of us were, if not all of us, but just as a dorm, we did a lot of that. So the need was tremendous.
The reason I ask is because the episode that will be released before this one is released, we are having a conversation with one of the founders of HRC. And what he shares in that episode was that while he, appreciated at the time, the value of what he needed it for, he really has appreciated listening to these episodes and hearing students and alum talk about what it meant for them while they were on campus. And that's something that, because he's disengaged since he's graduated, he's kind of missed hearing value. He's missed hearing the value of what he contributed to the legacy of Colgate. So I wanted to just kind of tap in and kind of see what it was like during your era.
It was amazing. Honestly, we thank him for that. We thank, all the founders and those who protested and the sit-ins and all that, who came before us at Colgate, because as much as I did all the activities at Colgate, like I said, and I, named some of the few, I did a lot of organization, UC, I was one of two interfaith community. There wasn't as many Black people in the community, which I mean, I get it, I understand, because that wasn't my kind of church neither. I have been raised at a missionary Baptist church. I am still at a missionary Baptist church. So there was no church at Colgate that was going to exemplify that. But I will say that the community welcomed me, and I felt God's presence in that community. It wasn't per se the preaching style that I was used to, but the love was there. But sometimes, despite how good you're treated and how many people are around you that treat you well and that loves you, sometimes you get tired of being the minority or the where's Waldo out of the group.
Yeah.
You get tired of being asked those questions as to, well, do Black people get offended for this? Do Black people get offended for that? And you just need a safe space where you can just be you. You can be okay to not know all the answers. You can be okay to talk about, we laugh about having your Black card revoked. It's okay that some people didn't eat fried chicken, although everyone swore that every Black person eat fried chicken and watermelon. Like, it's okay that some of us were allergic to watermelon. But it gave us a space where we could laugh and we could do those things where we didn't have to worry about assimilating. On the campus, we had to assimilate as to how we spoke. When we were around certain people, we had to watch what we said as to whether or not because someone was going to comment about it, but whether or not someone would understand it. There were colloquials that we used in the neighborhoods that we grew up with that other people didn't understand. Like if I'm sitting here telling my friend, yo, kick rocks. Like
colloquial.
Slang.
Right.
I don't need you kicking rocks though.
Rocks?
Right.
Like,
I don't need you kicking
what's
rocks.
the purpose of that? Was that a game as a kid? And it's
Right.
like, no.
If you don't know, you don't know.
Just don't understand. So let me ask you this. When you look back at your 4 years, are there things that you reflect on and look at as highlights, as accomplishments, things that you feel like, yeah, I'm proud I did that? Personal, organizational, just what will you look at some of the good things that happened while you were there?
So some of the good things that happened at Colgate. I had my moments. I think as my godmother told, I realized what she meant by saying that Colgate would get a Norvella education because they got one. I could walk into President Rebecca Chop's office, or give her a call, or give Lyle a call, and they would stop what they were doing and take my call. And so, but I also realized how to make Colgate work for me. And how to educate Colgate and make it work for me. As part of UC, I was one of the main people that orchestrated bringing Kirk Franklin up to Colgate.
Okay.
I heard he was so good the first time, and they loved it the first time that they brought him back a second time. So I learned how to spend Colgate money on bringing and supporting my culture. And how to make it a part of the university. So we brought artists such as Black Violin.
Yep. They're dope.
I saw them at Allegheny for a weekend that I was spending with friends at Allegheny because, of course, I was sad that I couldn't go there, but I had friends. And as my godmother said, you could always go visit. I went there for a weekend, and they had Black Violin there. And those men were amazing. And so I came back to Colgate and I was like, yo, y'all, listen to this. We need them on our campus. And I was determined that we needed them on our campus, and we brought them. Kirk Franklin did so well, despite the fact that Colgate did not want to support us and how much it was going to cost to bring Kirk Franklin. But because I had the ears and hearts of the UC minister as well as the chaplain, which was Mark Shine at the time, who still remains at Colgate.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was there this weekend. He's forever family. Because I had the ear and heart of them, and I wanted Kirk Franklin there, they donated the other $50,000 that we didn't have in our club organization group pot. Because as you know, the religion community has a larger pot. They have very big donors that support their cause and everything. And so as a community, they donated the other half of the money that Colgate refused to give us.
Wow.
And Kirk Franklin came. So much so that everyone had such amazing time. And we had choirs from all the schools around us. And when I tell you the house was brought down, Kirk Franklin did the damn thing. Like,
where was it? Those time it was in the chapel.
Packed. The chapel was packed.
In the chapel?
Beyond capacity.
Wow.
Like fire cold. People sitting in the windowsill. We had choirs from all over. So his musical director created a choir between our choirs. So each of our choirs sung 2 songs, but then he combined us as a choir, put all the altos together, all the sopranos together, baritones, and everything together. And we sang for Kirk Franklin.
Dope.
While he led us in his musical selections. And the school loved it and got so much publicity, so much so that next year when I suggested bringing Marvin Sapp, they gave us no problem whatsoever. Whatever money we wanted, they gave. And so I think that was one of the big features that I learned to do, making so that as much as I supported Colgate, that Colgate supported me on supporting my heritage and my culture on the things that I wanted to do and the things I wanted to educate the Colgate campus on.
So we're going to take a pause right there and take a pause for our sponsor, give them some love, and then we will come back and wrap up the conversation with the one, the only Norvella.
Yeah.
So this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Welcome back. We are here in the second half of this conversation with Norvella. And before we jump in, let's make sure we thank our sponsor for this episode, Hope Murals. As you know, we greatly appreciate all that Hope Murals is doing to expose our youth to urban arts and helping them just become better people. So make sure you show them some love, hopemurals.org. Give them some love. If you are interested in being a sponsor, make sure you show us some love at aftergatepodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email. We will see what we can work out. Also, show our network some love, the Defy Life Network at godefylife.com. You can find some really interesting, empowering written content. Check them out. If you want to show our network's podcast hub some love, where they have Aftergate and a whole slew of other podcasts, their podcast hub is www.defylifepods.com. But I'm going to pass the mic to my man, Jerry, so he can lead us off into the second half of the conversation.
So we're back with Sister Norvella. Hope Murals is in the business of working with young people who have done some wrongs and who are trying to get life right. And we just want to give them that possible sort of exposure to like what right looks like, what right can be. We do it through the arts. But I can't help but reference the recent case of Adnan Saeed and his release, as is the case with many brothers and sisters across the country who participate in various programs like the Innocence Project and what have you, that finds evidence years later after these brothers and sisters have done time and gets their charges reversed. Sister Norvella, you're in this. This is your industry. This is your lane of expertise. I'd be very interested in hearing your perspective on how this happens in the system, and what are the ways in which we can protect ourselves, become aware, teach our younger brothers and sisters, especially those that I've worked with who already have a strike against them coming out of juvenile detention. What would be the sort of guidance that they need to receive?
So, for one, for those who don't know, I am a assistant district attorney for Erie County, which is what most people call a prosecutor. It's a little different, but for most lay people, it's considered a prosecutor. We are charged with handling all the criminal actions that happen within Erie County. But yes, I am very familiar with the story of Mr. Adnan Saeed. And I think these are unfortunate examples of what happens when the system is overburdened and overloaded. I think the way we look at it is that there are always going to be bad people, no matter where you go and what field you're in. But you also have to realize that everybody in those positions are not bad. Some people are just ignorant. And not ignorant in a way where they're just rude or anything of the sort. Ignorant in the way of the true meaning of ignorant, not knowing. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know something that you weren't taught. And so when you're overloaded and have a system that's overloaded, it becomes a problem and it becomes a burden. But ultimately, I think one of the reasons I do the job that I do is because I've learned, especially recently, that as a prosecutor, I'm one of the most important people that stand in that courtroom. No policy can be made without the district attorney's office. And I wasn't always a prosecutor. I used to be defense counsel. And after doing defense work for a little over 2 years, I then transferred for the DA's office. But I realized, as being part of the DA's office, that it is important, as much as it's important for us to join criminal defense work and everything else, you can never make true change in the way that we need it, in the way that the system has affected our culture and our heritage and our people, unless you are part of that system. So the current conversation in our position that we've been having talks about community prosecution. And what does that look like? In order for us to determine what that looks like, we need stakeholders at that table. We need people that look like you and I at that table. We need those youth that are in the detention facilities that you work in at that table. We need to hear those stories from Mr. Adnan as to how we got there in order to fix where we're going. I think we can sit there and be apathetic or empathetic as to what is happening and say, oh, all these people are bad, and that the system is crooked. And I'll be the first to admit, the system has failed. The system has failed so many of us, especially those that look like me. But to be honest, that system is never going to be broken. That system is never going to be destroyed or burnt down from the bottom up. So the only way for us to do something about the failures that the system has made is to become part of that system and fix it. Mm-hmm. We can sit around and wait for everybody else to do it, but everyone else doesn't have the same stake. Mm-hmm. in that system as we do. Everyone is not affected by the system the same way we are. That is what keeps me at that table. That is what keeps me doing the job that I do. Is to know that even when I'm not the one per se making policy, because that's the job of the district attorney. And yes, he takes help from us and everything here and there. I know that it makes a difference of just being in that room, being at that table, being in that courtroom, and people seeing people that look like them.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've gotten students and I've gotten defendants that have walked up to me and say, sis, you killing it. Oh my gosh, sis. You're like a pit bull. Like, oh my gosh, you're killing the game. Oh, I hate to go up against you, but it makes a difference for them because it's someone that looks like them. And then when they hear me speak, or when I go off, or if I'm just in a conversation with friends or someone nearby, to know that, hey, I heard a little slang in what she just said over there. Oh, did you hear what she said to so-and-so, the colloquial she just used? To know that that person comes from a neighborhood and a community that they're from, it's even feels better when you're in that courtroom. So I don't think anyone wants to really be in a criminal courtroom, but unfortunately, we all make mistakes. We all have livelihoods. But it can be changed. And it matters who's around you in order to change that narrative. As I told you both, my background initially, besides being a kid from Buffalo, prior to Buffalo, I came to Buffalo by way of a kid from the South Bronx. My father and his family, my grandmother still lives in the same projects, my Haven projects.
Wow, say
in
word.
The South Bronx. Have lived there all their life, and she will die there because she refuses to move. And so being a kid living in my Haven project, and seeing what that life was and being able to get taken out of that because my father didn't like the way we glamorized the project life. And I never understood why, because my father didn't really tell me his story. I heard my father's story through others until I was old enough for my father to really tell me his story. His way of trying to avoid his story being repeated was to act as if it didn't exist. But way too often we know that that's not really the way. So I had a brother who decided he didn't want to live in Buffalo no more. He wanted to go back to New York City because he didn't like Buffalo, and he ended up in New York City selling drugs, which was my father's story. And in that story, he learned that, oh yeah, your father was one of the big OGs in projects and everything. He was one of the originals and everything else. But my father doesn't glamorize anything that he did when he was young. My father tells us the gunshot wound he got when his kneecap was blown out. And how that man that shot him in the exit could have took away his life right then and there. And that's why he didn't want us in part of that lifestyle and everything. The story that people don't hear about my father is that my father is a convicted felon. And so even though he went to law school and changed his life around, he was denied to practice law because they denied his character and fitness based on his past criminal record. And so even though he passed the New York State bar, which is one of the hardest bars to pass, he would have to wait 2-3 years later in order to be admitted to practice law until he could have a appellate panel review to give him his license. And so I say that to say that despite the fact that my mother was a crackhead and my father was at one point in time a drug dealer before becoming a criminal defense attorney, your past does not make you who you are. You decide on who you are. Your past helps to shape who you are, but it is not the becoming of you. It is not the end all and be all of who you are. So because you got a gun charge, because you committed that robbery because it was kill or be killed in the situation and the living environment you were in, it does not mean that that is the end all be all of who you are. And we get these examples that, despite what we do in life and despite how life can go wrong, we get those ray of sunshine moments, such as Mr. Adnan, with the wrongful overturning of, with the overturning of that wrongful conviction. We get the spotlight moments of, officers and bad officers that were part of the Judge Floyd, case and everything, and bad people who were part of the Ahmaud Arbery prosecution. We get those ray of sunshine when the news points them out and show us that we weren't wrong in the things that we're saying. But it takes more than everyone else to point it out and show us. It takes for us to do something and to become stakeholders and as part of that system. That system needs us as the main stakeholders in order to fix the corruption and to fix the past wrongs that it has done to our community. And if we stop caring and we stop being stakeholders, or we don't believe that there's ever going to be a change, then there will never be a change. So for that, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because I think far too often those kids are forgotten because they are in the system. And trust me, I'm a prosecutor, so I do believe that there are bad people. I've seen what bad people look like. I've seen that. I've seen those kind of people. But there are also youth that are misguided. There are also individuals who are not youth, that are adults that are misguided because they have been raised in a broken system. And there is a turning around. There is, and there always can be a turning point. And I think it takes people to continuously believe in them. And I thank Colgate for doing that, because honestly, I could have been someplace different. I could have chosen a different path. And even when I didn't want to be at Colgate, there were people at Colgate that believed in who I was, that believed in what I said, and that gave me the power, and that invested in me to make sure that I was heard at all times, and that I continue to have my voice. That made me grow into the person I am and realize that I do have a voice, and that I want to use my voice for the greater good.
And thank you for that insightful perspective, because many of us, even those of us who advocate for these young men and ladies who are not working in the system, don't know all its entities, only get to sort of learn what they get exposed to. So definitely want to be following up with you about how Hope Murals can come up to Buffalo and do some work with your young people up there. With that said, you gave us kind of where you're at. It was a perfect transition into our next segment, where you're at now. But take us through memory lane. You graduate Colgate in 2011. You don't become ADA in 2012. Give us a little sort of a lapse of what those steps were post Colgate.
So post Colgate was a little difficult time. I think as much as I had a great time at Colgate, I think the one thing Colgate failed me in was that while I was at Colgate, no one ever talked about life after Colgate. No one ever talked about it. No one ever told us what that looks like. For Colgate to be the elite school that it is, there wasn't much talk about graduate schools and all that process. Courses weren't bridged upon moving on up to the next level in terms of graduate schools and everything. So I made Dean's List every semester at Colgate. But even with making Dean's List and what I was doing, no one ever told me the process of what I needed to be doing in order to get into law school. So by the time I was a junior going into my senior year at Colgate, no one had ever sat down with me and told me that I should have already been planning and doing everything I needed to get into law school prior to then. So I was behind the 8 ball by the time I got into my senior year. And what made it even worse is that I spent my first senior semester abroad in Jamaica.
Holla.
So it was really holla. And as much as I had an amazing time, I was behind the 8 ball. So I remember coming home, and I came home December 22nd of 2010. And my godparents came to visit me. One of my sets of godparents came to visit about a couple of days later during the holiday time. And they asked me what comes next. You know, I was graduating in May, what comes next? And I'm like, oh, I want to go to law school. So it was like, okay, well, what's law school did you apply to? And I was like, well, I haven't applied yet. I got to take the LSATs. And they were like, you haven't taken the LSATs? Mind you, for context, this is around Christmas break. So this is like December 26th, December 27th of 2010.
Right.
The fall semester of my senior year. And I would be going to law school the following fall, and I had not taken the LSAT.
Right. Or prepped for the
applied to any schools. So at this point, I'm in panic mode.
Again.
Because exactly, and we know that I don't do well in panic mode because no one at Colgate ever told me that it was a process, let alone no one at Colgate never told me how expensive that process was. When I went to go sign up to take the LSATs, it was like, oh, boo, you can't sign up. You need $536.
Right.
Oh.
What? Like, exactly. I'm over here looking like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. Like, and so it was a process that I think that, you know, no one walked through at Colgate with me through that process. No one said what happened after. I think a lot of the speakers we heard from at Colgate, you know, talked about taking a year off and traveling around the world. And the community I came from, we didn't have that ability. We didn't have the ability to take a road trip around the world. I barely could afford to get to and from Colgate.
Right.
My father had to drive and come pick me up and take some of my friends that were from Buffalo, like Kendra and Dustin. We would all ride home together and pack the car up because sometimes we could not afford that train ticket or that bus ticket. Let alone you're telling me I gotta afford $5,036 to take this LSAT exam that I really don't want to take because you should just let me into school. But then as I was looking to apply and go through this process again of applying for schools, which you hope to be done with after you finally get into college, this process was way more expensive. There was no hardship waivers or fee waivers like there was in undergrad when you were applying for undergrad. There was no such thing as, oh, because you qualified for this, we're going to give you 4 SUNY waivers and 4 this waivers.
Negative.
Every law school wanted its money for its application fee. And those application fees weren't the $50 and $75. They were $150, $125 and everything. So it was choose wisely. The 15 schools I chose was not going to be 15 schools this time around because I didn't have money for 15. I needed to choose wisely and needed to figure out who was going to let me in because there was a lot of things that I did not do to prepare myself for them to say, this is the person I want. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go on a dollar and a dream. And I was grateful that I had my godfather, and my godmother, the set that I'm referring to were doctors. And so my godmother wrote me a check to pay for the LSAT and the CSAC program, which I needed to sign up for because they're the only one that can submit your law school applications to the law schools. So it's not just the test itself, you also need the program in order to apply. And then my godfather wrote me a blank check for me to decide and to figure out what law schools I wanted to apply to, how much it cost me, and to be able to cash that check and send that money in to each of them. Everyone doesn't have that gift. Everyone doesn't realize. And so that process cost me about $2,000. That's just the applying process. Not even getting in process. It doesn't guarantee that you'll get in after spending that money.
Wow.
And I got rejected from a lot of schools. And I won't say a lot of schools because I didn't apply to that many. But that was my first time experiencing rejection.
Wow.
And I don't think Colgate prepared me for that.
So where'd you end up?
I ended up at North Carolina Central University.
Oh, yeah.
Which also happens to be the alma mater of my godfather's brother.
Okay.
And so, they spoke about me, and the dean said he would look for my application and everything. And I ended up going there. And luckily North Carolina Central was one of those schools that didn't put the major emphasis on the LSAT. Because mind you, I told you, I came home December 22nd. I had to take the February 11th LSAT. That was the last LSAT in order for me to apply for school in the fall. In the meantime, as I'm waiting for a school to accept me and I'm not hearing back from schools, I need to decide on what I'm going to do, what comes next. So I applied for a program called City Year. And I applied for City Year Chicago. And I got accepted to City Year Chicago. So I made City Year Chicago my plan B, which became my plan A, because I had not heard back from the schools as to whether or not I got in, including my father's alma mater, University of Buffalo. Had not heard back from them. And I was calling. And of course, my father wanted to how come you didn't let me know? And I was just like, it's one of those things that was like, I wanted to get in based on me and not based on him. And so I decided that I had not heard nothing back from the law schools. So I was going to up and move to Chicago and do City Year. Once again, we know how petty my father is. He was not a happy camper. And he thought that we all conspired behind his back, although he was sitting at the same table that we all were when we had this conversation.
He don't remember that.
Because I wanted to make my own decision and act like I was an adult, then I could support myself as an adult. So I ended up, he stopped talking to me, and I ended up in Chicago.
Yes.
You're not gonna keep supporting him. He decided, because I decided, and for me, I felt like I had no other choice. I had not heard back from law school. I could not just sit at home and be a bum and not do anything. I needed to work. I needed to do something. And I chose City Year because it gives you I think it was a $5,000 educational award at the end of it that you could use for school. And it would be something that would look good on my resume as I wasn't just sitting around. In terms of reapplying to schools. But my father did not understand that. He was, now you're thinking you're an adult, you're making your own decision, you're throwing your life away. throwing my life away, but I'm going to help out with an organization that deals with helping kids. But I was throwing my life. And so I get to Chicago. I move all my stuff to Chicago, like boxes and boxes. I have an uncle that lives in Chicago at the time. He was dean of Loyola Medical School. And so I go to stay with him, his wife, my auntie, and my cousins. They have 2 girls. And so their oldest daughter, my cousin Ariel, is also looking for an apartment. So my uncle was like, perfect, I can find some place together. And it will give a little boost to her as to, something that y'all both can afford together. And I'm literally, I go to Chicago with $200 to my name.
Word.
That's
Oh, wow.
all I have. My father will not talk to me. My father won't give me any money.
Who told you to go to Chicago?
Right.
Exactly.
Throwing your life
My
away.
mom, I cried the night before I left for Chicago because my father refused to talk to me. He was like yelling and screaming as if he didn't know. My uncle, who was a pastor, was present. My mom was like, you didn't know you were there. And he's going off on everyone. And these decisions are being made behind closed doors. And he's so upset. And I'm like crying because I'm getting ready to head to the airport. And my father won't talk to me. I have no money to my name. My uncle has a couple dollars on him. He gives me the rest of that. I'm crying. I go downstairs to the basement. My mom comes down and she's like, don't cry, baby. You got to live your life for you and not your father. He'll grow out of it. He'll understand. And so I pack my stuff up and I take my suitcase and I leave. I'm doing city year. I'm broke. I'm just gracious enough that I'm staying with my aunt and uncle. And for the most part, there's food in the house and they grocery shop and whatever else. That my money is for whatever the things that I might need, toiletries or whatever else. But, they're like, we got some stuff here. You don't need to go. And so I'm living in Chicago. In order for me to go out, that's all the money. And if you've ever done city year, you don't get a paycheck until like towards the end. Which is really just a stipend.
And it ain't that much.
At all. And so I'm trying to make this $200 last. I get a call. I want to say I'm about maybe almost 2 months into city year. We're finishing the training portion of it, and we have just been told what schools we're going into.
Mm-hmm.
We've just been told our school selection, and I'm excited about the school selection I have, because it's in the neighborhood that I wanted, in the West Side, and it's nearby, close enough to where I live, off the blue line at the time. I get a call on a Sunday evening while I'm just hanging out. It happens to be my father, my uncle, as in my godfather's brother, and the dean of North Carolina Central. They were at a golfing tournament for alumni of the university who had passed away. And he was like, oh, we're looking, I was looking forward to meeting you. And your uncle told me that you're in Chicago because you had not heard back from us. And he's like, I personally looked at your application and we sent the acceptance.
Oh.
Wow.
I had not received that.
Mm.
So I tell people the Lord works in mysterious ways. So at that moment, that over the phone, he gave me my acceptance, and he also gave me 2 options. School was starting in a few hours that Monday. Mind you, this is Sunday evening. School was starting. Are you saying something? We can't hear you. School was starting that Monday in a few hours. And I was asking myself, whether or not I was going to accept my acceptance, or he gave me the ability to defer for a year and come the following year. And of course, my father had already said, no, she's coming, she'll be there, I actually accept. And so I'm like, well, the decision is still mine to make. And so he was like, well, I'll let you make the decision. And so I call around to family members that are close to me, who I confide in, my godmother, of course, as to what should I do. And one of the things my aunt told me is that I always wanted to go to law school. I pretty much was raised in law school. My father was a single father when he raised us and moved us out of the city and went to law school. And so we sat at the law school and lived at University of Buffalo Law School. We went through the bar exam questions. We were at mock trials. We were at, trial teams. So a lot of the people I practice with today have known me since I was that little girl. They remember when we were making a big spot of spaghetti and they were all part of the same study groups. And so my aunt was like, the option came back around. The option that you thought was dead, and that would not happen for another year came back around. What do you think God is saying? He opened the same door to you twice now. And so I'm just like, at that point, I go in. Nope, school starts on that Tuesday. I go into city year that following Monday. I submit my resignation papers. You have to do an exit interview and all that process. I go through that full process. I have to then go home, pack up my stuff. At this point, I got about $44, $45 to my name from the $200 I started with. And I got to make it to North Carolina now. My parents buy me a flight that gets in at 2 a.m.
Wow.
They book me a hotel room at the DoubleTree. And orientation starts at 8:30 Tuesday morning. He asks my uncle to give me a couple dollars or whatever he had in his pocket to give me a couple dollars. It just seemed like $200 is my lucky number, and my uncle has $200 that he gives me. So now I have $244 to my name. My father sends me a Western Union, but that money was to pay for my housing. They were able to talk with the dean of financial aid and everything, and there happened. When I tell you God puts things together, when he has given you and opened up a door for you, it was favor. There's one apartment left on the university happens to have one graduate dorm. And there's one apartment left in that graduate dorm.
Wow.
And I needed to put the security deposit of $150 down immediately. And so I went and paid that. And by the time I was done paying that, I met a classmate who, after meeting me, she drove me back to the hotel to pick up my suitcase once I got the dorm situated, to bring my suitcase back, and drove me to the grocery store to pick up a couple of things. When nice. I tell you, I slept on the mattress with nothing on the mattress. I literally put on sweatpants and a big sweater and crawled up in a ball and slept like that because it was cold in the apartment for about 2 weeks, because I had to wait for my parents to come down that way in order for them to take me shopping and get the rest of the things that I needed. I had no bed sheets. I had no linen. So I had no blanket or anything to cover myself up with. I had utilized all the money that I had to pay for the dorm and to pay for the bit of toiletries that I needed. to get me by. But once my parents got there, about 2 weeks later, my godfather came with them, and they set me up. And from there, it was history. I made it through North Carolina Central. I made Dean's List because I'm an overachiever. All 3 years of law school. I left a mark there as well. As far as I'm concerned, I'm one of those students that's like, you're not gonna tell me what to do. I pay your salary. I was extra. I will tell. I was extra. Don't be extra like me, but I was extra. But I had professors and everyone that looked into me. I took a trip to South Africa. To learn about Nelson Mandela and visiting Soweto and Johannesburg and all that, and the apartheid movement and the eradication of the original South African Constitution after apartheid, and how South Africa got to a point where it was. And I graduated law school in 2014. After graduating law school, when I tell you I hated North Carolina, yeah. So it was a place that gave me a chance. And so in the midst of going to North Carolina, I hated North Carolina. The South was just not for me. I still hate to this day the South, the North Carolina. I hate it with a passion. And probably because I tell people all the time, law school was the 3 most depressing years of my life.
Wow.
It's not fun. Like, my saying in undergrad was work hard, play harder. There was no play in law school.
True that.
There was no play whatsoever. Every professor acted as if they were your only class, knowing that you had about 4 or 5 more classes. And so,
wow.
And one of the other things I learned is that when I went to North Carolina Central, my father was excited because it was HBCU. And anyone that knows about Central knows that it is one of the first HBCU that existed with the founder, Charles Hamilton, and all of them. And most people don't even know Charles Hamilton, which I didn't know who he was. When you hear about the, these famous trials and everything, to know that he was like lead counsel and everything, you don't really hear that story. Like Thurgood Marshall, all of them, and Charles, you don't really hear that story. So I'm at North Carolina. I hate it there. I decide that in my junior year, I am thinking about transferring back to Buffalo. I've talked to the dean, and the dean is more than willing to accept me as a transfer student. My father's not happy about that. Mind you, I'm thinking he would be ecstatic. It's his alma mater.
Right.
That's where he wanted me in the first place. My father made a statement to me, and then one of the reasons I stayed is that UB failed to accept me when they had a chance. They also failed to reject me when they had a chance. UB gave me nothing. Even to this day, I didn't get acceptance or rejection from UB. And so my father said they don't get the benefit of what North Carolina produced to bring you in after 2 years, and to graduate you and you to be an alum of them. They don't get that benefit. Central was willing to take a chance on you. Central was willing to pour into you at a place where UB failed to even say, let me take this chance. And so why give UB that benefit of the greatness that you'll become? And so I wasn't feeling it at the moment he said it. So don't get wrong, it was powerful, but I wasn't feeling it because I didn't want to be in North Carolina.
Right.
And he was like, law school is going to be complicated and hard no matter where. You watch me go through it. You experience what I experienced or whatever. And that was like the first time he really had to sit down as to the complications he had.
Mm-hmm.
I think as kids, you try to like hide it from the kids and everything
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like the first time. And so I decided to stay at North Carolina. And I graduated at North Carolina. And the day after I graduated, the day of graduation, I was in the car with my godparents driving right home to
Oh,
Buffalo.
you was ready.
I was, whew, I didn't even want to go to graduation. I was told that graduation wasn't for the student, it was for the parents.
Sure fact.
I
That's
said,
true.
well, that's funny because I didn't see any parent in class with me.
You don't get it. Yeah, you don't get it. You don't get it.
And so I was forced to stay at graduation and to walk that stage. But I was out. I took 3 bar exams. Well, 2 bar exams that summer. So I was studying for the bar for New York and New Jersey. Because once again, I'm an overachiever and I like to go in over with everything over my head because I don't seem to be able to work if I'm not under extreme pressure. But we also know that I don't do well on the panic mode. So don't let the pressure become overwhelming because then I shut down. So I was studying for 2 bar exams and bar review sucked. And so one of the things that I learned, and I was speaking to my godmother, and I just could not understand bar review. And I had paid $3,000 for this course that I could not understand. And I needed to pass 2 bars. And so my godmother reminded me that no one knows you better than you know yourself. So no one can tell you what you need or what you don't need better than you can tell yourself that. No one can tell you what study habits works for you better than you can. Now, people can suggest things for you to do differently. But if you know yourself, you know what works and what doesn't. And my godmother was like, what works for you? So after spending all this money on bar review, I quit bar review. And I went to studying on my own. And I decided that one of the sayings my father always told me is it takes a village. And I have a huge village. And so I started calling in my best friends and my god siblings and everything and everyone to help me in terms of studying for the bar. Because these were the same people that was going to call me once I got licensed. They was going to call me for advice and some help.
Right.
So I called them all in and I put them on shifts as to help me come over, who was going to do flashcards with me, posters, and all of that. I studied for the New York bar, the New Jersey bar as much as I could, because at this point I was just like, one got to give, if that's the case. I really needed to pass New York. New Jersey was just a bonus. I spent 2 days in New York taking the bar, and then I spent the 3rd day in New Jersey taking its bar exam. I felt quite comfortable when I left the New York bar. I took it in New York City at the Javits Center. Like, I literally got done early on day 2, both times, on both parts, in the morning and afternoon session. So much to the point where I was walking to White Castle on the phone. My father was like, yo, this was good. He was like, so you mean we're going to have a lawyer in the family? I guess so. Like, I was confident when I walked out of New York. When I walked out of New Jersey, when I tell you, kid, no one tell me I passed that bar exam. I was for sure that I failed. There was no way possible. The stupid shit they asked on that exam, excuse my French, there was no way possible you could have told me I passed that. And so I end up finding out in October 28th that I passed the New York bar exam. On October 30th, 2 days later, I got the letter that said I passed the New Jersey bar exam. But what was better was that I received a score high enough on the federal portion that I could waive into DC. And so I waived into DC. I was licensed to practice law in New York State after passing character and fitness in both New York State and New Jersey. I was licensed to practice on January 15th of 2015 of New York, and I want to say it was January 17th or 18th, right after that I went to New York City. So what New Jersey does is that New Jersey doesn't have a formal ceremony for those who are out of state. So New Jersey just tells you have to take an oath. And so I had to do it the hood way, y'all. I had to represent.
What is
I
that?
went to My Haven Projects, to the 15th floor apartment where it all started. Had some friends and family member over, and with the presence of both of my grandmothers, maternal and paternal grandmothers, I took my oath right in the living room of my grandmother's apartment.
Dope.
That was the beginning. That was my beginnings. And just for everyone and my cousins and my friends and family to see, like, this is where we came from. And this is where I'm at. And we celebrated at BBQs. On Fordham.
Fordham Road.
So that was law school. I became licensed, and right after going out of law school, as I said, my father was a criminal defense attorney. So naturally, I had planned to practice defense. My first case coming out was a murder trial in Brooklyn, New York. Representing a 22-year-old defendant.
Wow.
And so starting off in the practice of law, I got to do amazing things that no one my age and with my level of experience ever gets to do. And that was because I had my father and my uncle who were veterans in the field that, brought me on. So I got to second seat, second chair, and third chair, multiple murder cases, multiple shooting gun cases, multiple, robberies and burglary cases that in my office, you don't get to do until after maybe 5 or 6 years in the office to have time. So I started off with getting such amazing experience. But one of the things was, as a sole proprietor, it was a hustle. Everybody tells you about all the good things in law and practicing and working, but no one ever tells you the bad things. No one tells you about how broke you're going to be and the bills still need to be paid on time. No one ever tells you about how your client don't want to pay you, but they want you to show up at court. Everyone's big on, oh, well, we need people to support the community. Oh, we need people to represent us and not charge as much. But no one ever talks about a community effort on paying these people because they got bills and they got kids and they got mouths to feed and everything else. And they got to be able to wear clothes. I had clients tell me I couldn't get paid because they just had to buy their daughter some new Jordans for school. Because out of all sneakers your child needed, she needed the new Jordans. Because that was the only pair of sneakers left that she needed.
Right.
But I'm still supposed to come to court. So it was a burnout for me practicing as a sole practitioner. It was wonderful in the experience I was getting. It was wonderful setting my own schedule. And I got the benefit of meeting and knowing the judges and meeting the people and getting a respect level because of who my father was. And let's be real, I'm always gonna be his baby girl. So if you was gonna come sideways at me, he was definitely gonna come sideways at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of the male attorneys knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there might be some things I might say or could do to other female attorneys, but this one is a no. Because as I'm already a minority in the field of law as a woman, I become a bigger minority as a Black woman. And so because law is a male-dominated field in general, is a field that has never wanted Black people because it's always, for the most part, the system has worked against us. We have always been on the opposite side of the system for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
We could not practice. We know the story of Thurgood Marshall and all those things on how we had to practice and how someone had to sit next to us and how we still could not. We weren't allowed in those bench conferences and everything else. And even though we were in 2015, 2016, you see some of those same idioms and everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
We still have some of the same problems that we hope that we had left behind. And so, of course, as a female, there's a lot of oh dear or honey boo boo and everything else. There's a couple of times I've had to shut people down where it's like, I'm pretty sure I got the same law degree that you got. And in fact, I got 3 law licenses. How many you have?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 1. You barely got that one. Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Because you have a lot of those. And I realize that no matter what we do as African Americans in the US, that as much as we hate the fight and trust and believe, I get tired of it all the time. And I need that inspiration and motivation. I literally just got rejuvenated at the National Black Prosecutor Conference in Houston. But I have those moments where it's like, I'm tired of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of fighting. Like, we've always been told all our lives that we have to be 10 times better. And even when we do things 10 times better and work 10 times harder, we're still left behind. Like, even this day, like, I work in a system that, the people that you see moving up and becoming judges, it's because of money.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of qualifications a lot of time. And, we deal with that, and you have to constantly be able to say, like, what is this? Like, but you just have to be able to deal.
So
you have to be able to deal and fight.
So let me ask you a question about perspective now. So I'm curious. You've gained a lot of insight in your profession, but a decade has left since you've left Colgate. So I'm curious to know, with some of this insight, if you had the opportunity to get in the ear of Norvella coming onto campus, what would be some words of wisdom you might share with her? And then as Norvella is graduating, what might you say to her?
So the insight that I would have given me is the insight that I give my siblings. And I give my mentees. I do a lot of mentoring because that's my first passion. Law is really a second. Don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. I think we do a lot of holding back, or reaching out to certain things or certain speakers or schools, for example, when you're waiting on acceptance or rejection because you're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You're afraid of what the answer is, and then you're afraid of what to do when you get that answer. And fear holds a lot of us back. And I think we need to stop allowing fear to control our every move. And so I would definitely tell myself to let the fear go. Don't tell yourself no. If you're gonna get a no and you believe you're gonna get a no, then let them tell you no. And if you already think they're gonna tell you no, then it doesn't hurt. They're telling you what you already know then. But you might come in luck and get a yes.
All right.
That you never expected.
Sure.
And the second
Norvella,
thing,
Norvella, who's graduating, what would you tell her?
Norvella that is graduating, I would tell her it is important to have a plan. So yes, a plan isn't the end all be all, but it is important to have a plan. And when you have a plan, it is important to research and look into that plan. You can't just sit and wait for everyone else to do the research for you or to explain it to you. That when there is something that you know you want to do, it is your job to look into it. When there's a job you know you want, it is your job to look into it and figure out how to get that job. If it's a school you want to go to, you need to figure out what is needed and what is required to get there. So, I learned that late in life. I didn't know that when I graduated Colgate, but you weren't going to fool me a second time when I graduated law school. I was already, when I came into law school, I knew what bar exam I wanted to take, and I was already looking at the qualifications and what I needed to pass that New York State bar exam.
I like that.
I looked at it from day one. What was the bar outline for the New York State bar exam? I knew what courses I needed to take and everything else.
So Colgate did teach you. in the right kind of way. When you're not prepared, what you got to do. Now you be prepared.
Yep, it taught me by making me fall on my face.
Right.
And sometimes falling on your face is the best lesson.
Hello. Life lessons.
Yep, because you wasn't gonna make a fool out of me a second time. So I learned that it's not on everyone else to teach me what comes next. I was expecting Colgate and everyone else there to tell me what comes next and what the next step should be, when I should have been putting that together and researching that.
Nice. So last question. It's just an opportunity for you to this is an opportunity for you to promote any initiative, anything you want to share with the network, a way for people to reach out to you. It's a part of why we're doing this also is to leverage this network of AOC around the world. So if there's anything you want to let us know, put out in the universe, here's the platform is yours.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't know, we are reimagining AOC at this time. We just came up with a proposal as to the new constitution.
All right.
So please, anyone that has been involved, they have received the email. Anyone that was on campus or anyone that said they wanted to be involved received the email as to the next purpose in terms of ratifying the new constitution. Please comment on that email. There was a poll as to the next time to meet and to vote. So please comment on that email. If you are not part of that email, please contact Gina Robinson or Siobhan Martin. Let them know that you're interested, so that we can hear your voice as to ratifying the new, what will be, whether you like it or not, the new AOC constitution and structure. Also want you all to know that although you might have felt alone on campus and that there might have only been 5 or 15 of y'all, that there's so many more of us now, and that we share such a bond and a story, and that it's important to reach out. And mentorship is good, and it's good on all levels. And not so much just to be a mentor, but we all need to be a mentee as well. And so to know that there are mentors out there who are willing to take you on, to know there are people who share similar stories to you, that identify with what you are and what you are doing, to know that you're not alone. And so I think each phase of life, we sometimes and somehow feel that we're alone because of the cities and states and places that we are in. But to know that there are other alumni, and people that you can relate to that are in the same position as you, it's important to make those connections. So please, everyone, reach out to us. We have a AOC Facebook page. If you send a friend request, I will. I respond mainly right away for the most part.
Okay.
I might be a couple hours late, but I will respond. Now I'm a little strict on my acceptance. I'm gonna ask you a question to make sure that you're not playing no kind of Facebook games or no fake page.
Right. That's
I'm a prosecutor in the fraud department.
right. We can't be
So
playing
I need to
around.
make sure
Right.
there's not no scam or no Bitcoin kind of person at the
Hello.
bottom just send a whole bunch of messages, which is gonna make everyone just not want to be part of it.
Right.
We all know how we've been delete me from this group because I'm tired of seeing these same messages.
Amen.
So I'm a little strict as to how you know about Colgate and what class year and who professor you had. So I ask them kind of questions.
Keep the shenanigans away. No shenanigans.
But we really want you to be part of us. We know that there are people that have not visited Colgate campus since they left. We know the reason why, and we understand the reason why. But we want you to come back for the same reason why you left. Because if you had that kind of experience, imagine what other people are going through. And how do we make it so that the next generation does not have to deal and put up with what we put up with? The only way to do that is to get involved and to be present, and available, for those who are coming after us.
My sister, you are giving me chills. Having come 20 years behind us on that campus, to hear the energy, I really feel like in many ways this torches being passed. And so I appreciate the energy of this new era and vigor coming into AOC. I felt it that day in the cultural center, and definitely appreciate you lifting that up as we close this episode. But everything being everything, Norvella, I appreciate your godmother sending you to give us this Norvella education to Colgate, because honestly, like, you are part of this story, and I appreciate the perspective you have and the seat you have. So keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate learning a lot about you tonight. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you all for having me. It was a pleasure.
This has been another episode of Aftergate Season 2. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our listeners. Aftergate is always powered by the Defy Life Network. Make sure you check out more of our podcasts in the future. Many more dope episodes to follow. Remember, the Colgate of your day is not the Colgate of today, and certainly not the Colgate of the future. Peace, family.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy Life.